Let's speak with Henry Smith, former Tory MP. Henry, afternoon to you. Always good to gauge your views on these things. And I think the point that Chris Philp made there is arguably spot on, right? I mean, these aren't people that nip down to the TSB at lunchtime to deposit their ill-gotten gains.
Well, good afternoon, Ian. You're absolutely right. We are dealing with some very sophisticated criminals here. They have methods of avoiding the normal transactions that you or I have to abide by. And you mentioned earlier on about Russian sanctions that were imposed a few years ago after their second invasion of Ukraine. They have only had a minimal effect in terms of dissuading those Russian individuals from their activities. So don't get me wrong, I welcome any measures that are being introduced to try and stop cross-channel illegal migration. But I think this is probably tinkering around the edges. And your point earlier as well about this legislation being introduced later in the year. Well, we've only just started 2025. This is actually proposed to be secondary legislation, so they could pop upstairs this afternoon to a House of Commons committee room and pass this secondary legislation right now if they wish to. So if it is as good as the government is saying, they really need to be getting on with it now. But ultimately, this takes removing the pull factors as to why people come to the UK. Yeah. And a big part of that is our membership of the so-called European Court of Human Rights.
It's interesting that every time I hear, I know Rishi Sunak didn't really covering himself in glory. There was an initiative, Rwanda, which we will never know how successful that might have been. As I said to Brendan O'Neill a second ago, the smart money says it might have worked in part. But either way, what we do know about the new lot, Mr Starmer and Yvette Cooper in particular, is that it's not really in their DNA, Henry, is it? You know, I don't, you know, when I hear somebody from that part of the political spectrum talk about migration and channel boats, I don't sense I'm going to get a satisfactory answer.
There is a credibility problem when Keir Starmer stands up and says he wants to smash the gangs, because vote after vote in the last Parliament and previous Parliaments, Keir Starmer and the now Home Secretary Yvette Cooper voted against measures to mitigate against cross-channel migration. Consistently, they voted against those measures. I supported Rwanda. I tend to agree it wouldn't have been some sort of silver bullet, but it would have helped, I think. They voted against that. And of course, the current Home Secretary, there's that fairly infamous picture of her holding up a placard with hashtag refugees welcome. So, you know, this is the person in charge of immigration policies in this country, and therefore there is that credibility gap, I'm afraid.
And every time Mr Starmer or Cooper talk about this, they don't ever seem to actually mention the boats. They obsess themselves with this new mantra of smashing the gangs. I don't know how many initiatives we've had on this. This latest one seems slightly bizarre. I mean, it almost seems naive, bearing in mind that, you know, of all the things I might criticise Starmer and Cooper for, I don't think they're stupid, reasonably intelligent people, one of them a lawyer, etc. You might think that they would realise that, you know, if you're trousering large amounts of money, you're not doing it through the conventions of normal banking. I mean, this is organised crime.
Well, that's right. You know, criminal gangs don't behave in the way that you and I do when we're making transactions. Our transactions are above board, are very easily traceable, and are in relatively small amounts. These are people who are dealing in hundreds of thousands of pounds of transactions taking place, and they are done in nefarious ways that don't go through the normal routes. Therefore, you know, yes, I do welcome this action, but I don't think we should get carried away that this is going to be the solution that's going to stop the cross-channel migration. Absolutely, it's right that we talk about smashing the gangs, because these are people smugglers. These are people who are taking money from people and putting them on a very perilous journey. Just a few weeks ago, there were more drownings in the English Channel as a result of people trying to cross. Let's not forget the human cost of that. But ultimately, if this country is a pull factor because of our benefit system, because people know that when they get here, they can clog up the legal system because of the ECHR with claims not to be deported, people know that once they arrive here, their chance of being removed is infinitesimally small. And that is the pull factor that will keep people coming until that is addressed. And I'm afraid this government isn't willing to address those fundamental causes.
Indeed. Henry, thank you. Henry Smith, former Conservative MP, with us on that one. I mean, the point he made about Rwanda, I think what would have happened, and we have talked about this endlessly, and it's no good going too much over old ground, but it is worth reminding ourselves what the bookmakers would have said would be the case with Rwanda, and that is that one of the reasons I think Rishi Sunak didn't go for an election at the end of last year, rather had a summer one in July, was that they probably knew the numbers were going to go up. Now, Rwanda might have been in place by then, but Mr. Sunak would have been faced with the horrendous credibility problem of a plane taking off for Rwanda with about 37 people on it. And someone said, but Prime Minister, there's literally nearly 50,000 people. Okay, you've got 37 people on a plane. Oh, don't worry, there's another one going in 3 weeks. That's going to have 48 people. Almost having 48, 37 is worse than there being none, because it therefore looks like a broken policy or a policy that simply isn't working. Regardless of whether it's Rwanda, whatever, the stopping of the boat, I'm going to come back to this every time. I don't understand how it can be, we're in this kind of weird pincer movement, this political, moral cul-de-sac of doom where, well, you can't stop the boats. OK, you can't stop the boat. And you can't then deport the... No, you can't do that either. Well, you can, but it'll take you years to process each. It just seems incredible to me that this is the world we're living in. And then people scratch their head and go, well, why are Reform UK doing well? Well, because they talk about stuff like this, and you might not like the cut of their jib on everything. And there might be individuals in Reform that you like and others you think are not quite so effective. But the mood music, the discussion, is the one that none of the main political parties are having. And that sense, and if Reform UK did get into power, I know that's a long shot just based on our electoral system, even if there was an election tomorrow. But if they did get into power, I think there's a very real sense they would robustly give this a go. And again, this is a churning of the same line, but whether you're left-wing or right-wing, surely everybody would support stopping the boats. Yeah, of course you've got to smash the gangs. We know that. But that's already and has been forever a criminal offence, a serious criminal offence.